Hello, I'm Abigail Foerstner. I'm the director of the Health, Environment, and Science Specialization at Medill, and I'm so happy to be with you here today. I'm looking forward to having a chance to visit with many of you in coming weeks. The Health, Environment, and Science Specialization is unique in many ways, and we'll go through some of that during this presentation. A little about me. I'm a lifer at Medill. I came here as an undergraduate. I have my graduate degree from Medill. I wrote and reported for the Chicago Tribune for years and for other media as well. And then I came home to teach health, environment, and science reporting, which had been my forte in professional media. Everybody covers health, environment, and science stories these days. Of course, Self magazine gives it a little different spin than Scientific American, but this program helps you to bridge the gap between highly technical stories and varied audiences, whether that audience is in Self or on BBC or in many other varied media. We teach you to bridge that gap so that science stories are accessible and empowering. So how do we do that? Well, we work on a variety of strategies, multimedia strategies, strong narrative strategies. We look at interactive graphics and how to make them very, very compelling. We use anecdotes and examples and lots of interviews with scientists, with people who are affected by various technologies and various kinds of new treatments. These are critical stories to people's lives, and we want to make those stories come alive and make them very understandable to people. Our program is very holistic. It allows you to give context to your health, environment, and science reporting by studying as well classes in business, classes in interactive graphics, classes in podcasting, and other areas. We are absolutely committed to social justice contexts for our stories, and we do a lot of stories. We do a lot of reporting literally across the world. What backgrounds do students in the program come from? That's a frequent question. All backgrounds. You will fit right in here if you have a chemistry degree, a microbiology background, you've been in a lab, you're a med student taking a gap year, you've been in communications, journalism, and some crossover of many of these. That's what we do. We bring you all together, your ideas cross-pollinate, and we all learn from each other. This year, for the first time, the Medill Specialization has been approved as an elective for students in the Feinberg School of Medicine, in the Engineering School, and in the STEM program. So there's a lot more cross-pollination than ever. You will come away from this program with a professional portfolio of published work. It's very important for us to help you develop the skills you need to take work to a public forum. And here, let's just take a look at some of the stories students have been working on and publishing. So let's start with this investigation that we did of pollution loads in neighborhoods of Chicago. The map actually came from the Chicago Department of Public Health. And you can see the red areas in the south, the southwest, and west sides of Chicago. Those red areas are the most polluted areas in the city, and people of color and people who are poor disproportionately live in those areas and are exposed to pollutants from heavy traffic and from factories. What happened was that during COVID, we were given figures from the Illinois Department of Public Health, they were publicly available, showing by zip code across the state the mortality rates and also the rates of illness due to COVID in those various zip codes. And the zip codes with the highest rate of illness and mortality coincided, with those most polluted areas in the city. Another story we did, and it involves similar stories, we visit labs. This lab is called GeoCal. It's a lab on Northwestern's own campus, and you can see a soil core, that dark core of soil in this photograph. The young scientists there extract these cores from the bottom of lakes. And these cores, and this lab is actually a time machine, because those layers of mud that are visible in that soil core actually cover 13,000 years of climate history. These PhD students and their faculty members can look at the layers in the core and see when it was cold and when climate heated up, and they can look at some very abrupt changes. But none of the changes from the past are as abrupt as the changes we are pushing now as fossil fuel emissions push the climate thermostat much higher with carbon in the air. We interview top scientists, and this is Richard Alley, a top climate scientist. He has won or shared in the Nobel Peace Prize for the writers of the IPCC United Nations reports on climate change. And he's done several major interviews with us with updates on what we can expect from sea level rise and global warming and the kinds of extreme weather that we saw just these past several days with Hurricane Helene and other extreme weather events. These are radiating neurons. We spend a lot of time looking at research and some of the stunning images that research produces. This research involves a new imaging technique so that you can follow the passage of neurons in the brain, and with this imaging, start to see the clues to various illnesses that might be in the brain, memory loss, Parkinson's, other kinds of challenges. We, of course, covered the eclipse earlier this year. And this is Lake Tanganyika in Tanzania. Students had Pulitzer Center grants to go there this summer and fall, and they will be working with scientists and fishermen who are citizen scientists and are looking at the fact that the lake is becoming warmer, that it is threatening the fish populations on which millions of people depend for their livelihood and for food and protein, and also threatening the water supply. This is a global problem and just one of the many stories that we localize but bring a global spectra to. One of our reporters went scuba diving into the Great Barrier Reef with Reef Ecologic, a conservation not-for-profit that is trying to conserve parts of the Great Barrier Reef off Australia. And she did this as part of embedded reporting. Another embedded reporter went to the southernmost tip of South America, southern Chile, to look at how rapidly the ice sheets are receding. The only way that she and the team of scientists she joined could follow the path to these ice sheets was via a 45-foot sailboat. And that's how they got there. They stayed on this vessel for more than a month. I know a lot of you ask about the embedded reporting program, which is truly unique. It means that you have the opportunity to join science field research teams and science research institutions across the world. Let me share with you a video showing some of the places and some of the research teams that our students joined earlier this year. Take a look.
My embedded reporting trip to Montserrat was goated. I went on an eco-adventure hike with former forest ranger Scriber Daly while he told me about the flora and fauna on the island. Out on the bok choy farm, I learned about the challenges of island farming from Kelvin Pond. My car didn't like all the travels, though, and overheated, but that's okay, I didn't chicken out. Instead, I went flying via helicopter while volcanologist Karen Pascal replaced GPS equipment used to monitor ground deformation of the Soufriere Hills volcano. Volcanologist Thomas Christopher monitored the sulfur dioxide emitted from the volcano while we flew above the island.
I spent 5 weeks in Sri Lanka, where I reported on stories including an initiative to save whales from collisions with large ships, and how a nearly 200-year-old charity is using 3D printing and recycled prosthetics to provide artificial limbs to those in need. Mainly, however, I reported on efforts to rehabilitate Sri Lanka's wetlands, critical ecosystems that provide a natural barrier to floods that regularly devastate the island country. Engineers and ecologists are building new wetland parks to protect local wildlife and communities, while trying to tap into new economic opportunities through tourism and recreation in the wetlands, despite rising risks from pollution, overuse, and mismanagement.
My embedded journey brought me to India, a cultural and scientific hub. I absorbed the ins and outs of what many consider a nuisance, but coastal communities have made an industry out of: seaweed. Through push and pull, we were acquainted. Seaweed showed me how her cultivation has a carbon-negative output in an otherwise carbon-positive world. You would love seaweed if you got to know her. Her researchers are creating an alternative agriculture movement by making her into a biostimulant, reducing chemical fertilizer usage. All this, and she still has time to provide livelihoods where matriarchs are the breadwinners. By car, foot, and boat, she took me 2,000 miles across India and showed me corners of the world I would have never seen otherwise.
I spent the quarter with Openlands, attending volunteer events and learning about their programs. I read about birds, Lake County environmental boards, arborist apprentices, invasive species, and more.
I got to travel to the Southern Alps in New Zealand, where I joined earth and climate scientists from the University of Maine for their field season. These researchers are trying to understand the mechanisms behind the climate changes of the Holocene by studying glaciers from the last glacial period and the Little Ice Age. The hope is that a better understanding of climate change from the past will inform us of what we can expect in the future. I joined graduate students as they sampled boulders in the field and even got to fly by helicopter into the Aerosmith Range, where we searched for boulders deposited by glaciers.
I spent the past month in Puerto Rico reporting on energy sovereignty through solar energy. I was reporting all over the island, but my home was an organization called Casa Pueblo in Adjuntas. I roasted coffee beans and I made friends. I expected to learn about solar energy, but I also got to learn about art, resistance, the environment, culture, community, decolonization, and much more.
I spent 5 weeks in the North Yorkshire region of England, embedded with the Yorkshire Peat Partnership, which is a charity organization that restores damaged peat bogs. Peat bogs are wetland ecosystems. They are typically at higher elevations, and the thick peat captures and holds water from England's heavy rainfall. Healthy peat bogs prevent floods and store about as much carbon as a tropical rainforest. They were heavily degraded through agriculture, which resulted in rapid erosion. YPP works to slow the erosion through building dams and planting mosses, which absorb 20 times their weight in water. We went out into the field, measuring peat depth, surveying constructed dams, and meeting with stakeholders. I also learned about all the work YPP does to engage local people from every age and walk of life to care about protecting this amazing landscape.
I am embedded in the Cordillera-Darwin mountain range of southern Chile with paleoclimatologists Brenda Hall and Tom Lowell, who are mapping how quickly glaciers retreated at the end of the last ice age. Their work dating rocks from the glacier fields is aimed at hypothesizing what causes abrupt changes to ice age cycles, which may explain climate change and rapid ice melt today. You're looking at footage and photos from Kayla Hunter, a Medill alum who worked with the team last year. This year, I'm building on her reporting with new data that is putting scientists one step closer to some answers about the future of our changing climate.
Let's just talk about some other possibilities that we have for programs to enhance your specialization work. Some of them are scholarship programs. The Comer Scholars Program, funded by the Comer Foundation in Chicago. It provides both scholarships and reporting funding. And also the Trinan Scholars Program also provides scholarships and funding from the Paula M. Trinan's Institute for Sustainability and Energy at Northwestern University. There are other internship and program opportunities as well that we can talk about. We have lots of publishing partners and opportunities, and I am happy to send anyone who requests them links to some of the many published articles in both broadcast and narrative media. Some of these partners include the Bulletin of the Atomic Scientists, Chicago Health Magazine, Chicago Magazine, the Chicago Reader, the Chicago Reporter, Discover Magazine, Illinois Latino News, National Geographic, the Smithsonian, WebMD, podcast forums, and Undark, to name a few. And so where do graduates go after they become alums and leave Medill? Life after Medill. People go to the Associated Press, the Ledger Inquirer in Columbus, Georgia, Discover Magazine, the Fermi National Accelerator Laboratory, the Green Bay Gazette, NASA in Houston, NASA at the Goddard Space Flight Center, the Orlando Sentinel, NPR, the New Scientist, the Pulitzer Center for Crisis Reporting, which gives fellowships for the kind of reporting we're doing at Lake Tanganyika, the Smithsonian, the St. Louis Post-Dispatch, Science Magazine, U.S. Fish and Wildlife, and the U.S. Navy. So you can see that we are going to regional publications, national publications, different kinds of broadcast outlets and consortiums, a wide range of careers and activities and commitments to make science communications accessible to all. I look forward to talking and visiting with you more in the weeks to come. And you can contact me either via email or feel free to call my cell phone. Everyone, all my students have my cell phone, and I would be delighted for you to call and to talk for a minute, find out if you have some other questions, find out if there are other resources we can provide about the unique opportunities we offer in our graduate program at Medill in the Health, Environment, and Science specialization. Thank you so much. Have a great day.